We've always had a multicultural landscape here in Canada, but it's still an uphill battle when you look for true and equal kind of representation or opportunities. So that definitely opened that door to one, sure, maybe some kind of more possibilities to do work with the Food Network or other like media companies, but more of the door in my mind of what is possible to do out there, right? I'm just happy that I have confidence in myself taking on those spots, or at least helping people come into those pathways themselves. I've worked in so many restaurants, and I would say 9 times out of 10, the staff meal for the chefs is always dog shit. Why are we not fueling our body with real food so I can go work an 8-hour service and actually perform at the level I need? When people come back to me and they're just like, Chef, I stopped smoking and I started working out and I've never felt better. Or chef, you know what? I got a therapist because I've been going through this. This has changed my life. These chefs running 1, 2, 3 Michelin star kitchens can one, talk about said subjects and then actually do something about it. I'm like, why can't we be doing that here? It's been so rewarding to be part of a healthy community in this industry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Hospitality Bites. I am your host, self-proclaimed hospitality hustler and mompreneur and founder of this show and Hospitality Bites Media. As many of you know, I take great pride in amplifying voices from different sectors of the hospitality industry with the aim of humanizing the experience. My guests have included restaurateurs, bartenders, chefs, cookbook authors, consultants, and advocates. And today's guest holds nearly all of these titles, making him a multifaceted figure in this industry. Today's guest is particularly special to me because I had the distinct pleasure of working alongside him in our advocacy efforts at the Burnt Chef Project. He is one of our chief Canadian ambassadors, and with over 15 years in the industry, he has worked his way up from dishwasher to competitor on Top Chef Canada. He also is trained at the world-renowned Noma restaurant. Now he takes pride in blending his multicultural background to bring powerful and distinct flavors to the forefront. Welcome to the show, Imrun Texeira. Welcome, Imrun.
Thank you so much, Colleen. Beautiful, beautiful intro. Couldn't ask for anything better.
Well, it's so fun when I read people's bios or like what they've done and worked on. It's hard to pick out like what's the most impactful thing. And then I was like, well, the most impactful thing is letting them speak. So whatever I say is just a small glimpse of what you've done and what you've accomplished.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's very hard to, especially as the years roll by for all of us, right? To really find which resonates best with, say, the audiences that we're looking to bring in, but at the same time, what represents us, right? Because we can always craft that in so many different ways.
Well, it's funny. You just had a birthday and I had a birthday too. So you're a Cancer baby like me.
No, I'm a Leo.
Oh, wait. Oh, it ended. Wait, what? So you're
July 31st. So.
All right. So you're a Leo. All right. I thought you were a Cancer like me. That's right. I'm a very big empath if you haven't noticed.
I'm the same way. Do not worry.
That's what I thought. I was like, you're very like, you give off like empath vibes. Totally.
Maybe it's that like cool, calm collectiveness from the Leo sign. I don't know.
Maybe.
I got to do more like brushing up on my signs.
When I had kids is when I kind of got into signs because I'm like, oh, what's your baby's sign? I was like, I don't know. Look into that. All right, well, we don't have a ton of time because he's a busy man and I am a busy mom with 2 very tired kids probably in the background. Let's jump right into it. So what kind of drew you into culinary specifically? I mean, I know that you started as a dishwasher, so tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so I've always loved food from a young age. I might not look it, but I loved eating more than I loved cooking. And I was very lucky to grow up with some amazing food. Being at home with my parents, my family, my extended family, especially growing up in Canada, we are always surrounded by amazing food. So if that's from my background being mostly South Asian, but having parents that have grown up in parts of East Africa, most of their adulthood was spent in London and the UK. So there's so many inspirations when it comes from food, flavors, traditions. And that is just how my household was as a kid. So if it was fish and chips on Fridays, British Sunday roast on Sundays, maybe lasagna midweek. And then when we went out for Sunday brunch, if you will, it wasn't your classic waffles and eggs. We would go out for Cantonese or like Hong Kong style dim sum. So it was like this kind of like crazy range of flavors, experiences on the get-go when I was a child, if you will. And that just kept evolving into a love of food, hospitality, seeing different levels of hospitality from your dim sum restaurants, your casual kind of eateries, all the way up to fine dining. There's just so much a dynamic range to what it's like to work or to be in that kind of environment, and I think that just really pulled me in. Being around people, being around, of course, food and whatnot. It was so captivating, and it was not really something I just fell into. It was something I knew at a pretty young age that it was going to have some kind of a major role in my life. And what, 15, 16 plus years later, after starting in the industry about 14 years old, I haven't left since.
Well, and your brother went into the industry too.
Yeah, so funny enough, I have three brothers, one younger sister, but all three of us have had stints in the restaurant world. So for my younger brother, he was just doing jobs as a young professional, paying his way through college and university. But my older brother and I are both chefs to this day. So I
So
went more of the formal educational route. He's done maybe a bit more kind of international travel and work placements, but yeah, we're still both chefs in different parts of the world at this moment in time.
where's your brother?
So he is based in London in the UK.
Okay.
So he was last I talked to him, he's been running one of the private members clubs for one of the top football teams in central London. So not a small task by any means.
No, those guys can eat. We're talking about soccer if you are in America right now.
Yeah, yeah, sorry.
Well, obviously food had a huge impact on your family. If majority of your family went into the industry and were touched by it in some capacity, and you kind of touched on what your background is and your ethnicity, what was it like in your home growing up?
So it was interesting because food has been a priority in my life, but maybe it wasn't as a priority maybe in our household because
Mm.
I'm sure you can attest how hard it is to be a mom. I grew up, I would say, most of my life under a single mother, raising four kids by herself. So even with support systems in place, it is still hard. So
Yes.
being in a city where we had no extended family and she's trying to run this all by herself, and she emigrated over to Canada in the early 90s right before I was born with no job experience in this country. So her whole life in Canada was raising three new kids, so four in total, and then being put in that kind of a situation was definitely life changing for her, especially as a family. So it's not like we were always having gourmet meals at home and home cooked meals by her. She's hustling to make everything happen for
Mhm.
us. But that in turn put onus and responsibility on me, my brothers, and whatnot to cook, take care of each other. And that's where I think a lot of that skill set started from, was just cooking family meals at home. Yeah, maybe they're craft dinner, spaghetti and meatball like dinners, but when you're 9 years old, you can only do so much.
Right. Well, I mean, man, hats off to your mom raising four kids. My mom had four kids and she had my dad. I can't imagine being a single mom and a single working mom because the load that that has, like mentally, you have burnout faster. You get short with your kids. I mean, I know that I can speak from experience. I'm having like a tough time right now. I get short and I don't mean to, and I only have two. I only have two little people to worry about. And for you guys, what a great example of someone that's giving of themselves to provide for their family and experience. It probably speaks to why you are the way you are. I've told everyone that I've met that getting to meet you in person in Georgia was like one of the best parts of the whole thing. Getting to meet everybody was wonderful, but you carry yourself in a way that I don't know. It's like you've lived a very long life for being so young. I mean, I say that several years older than you, but it's like you have had so much life experience and you see the world a bit differently. You are empathetic, you're knowledgeable, you take time to listen to people. So I would credit that a lot probably to your mom and what it was like.
100%. I appreciate the kind words. It's I guess fortunate, unfortunate that I've had to maybe grow up faster
Mhm.
in different parts of my life. Especially working in this industry, you see a lot of unique things, especially
Yes.
depending on the realms you get into. But that's again opened up many doors, or unfortunately maybe burned other bridges or different parts of my life. Growing up so quick and being in an industry that's so full, like hands on, if you will. But I think that's really made me the person who I am today. So I can't really look back at it with regret, if you will, but just amazing lessons I've been able to
Mhm.
carry forward with me, hopefully into the future.
Definitely. What was like some of those hurdles that you had to face? I know we've talked kind of privately, we've both experienced different things in the industry. What were some of the more difficult things that you'd have faced as you came up in the industry, especially being like a young man, now into your adulthood?
Yeah, so I know we can both probably talk about how
I know.
long the list could be, right? And it's always interesting comparing notes, if you will, with other professionals on their perspectives, especially when we're from two different countries, but a lot of the problems we know cross borders around the
Mhm.
world, right? So for me specifically, I think one starting off, the hard part was being in the shadow of my older brother, just because he was the one who got me my first job.
Oh.
And I learned after the fact that he was a dishwasher at this local chain restaurant. And the only way for him to get a promotion was to bring in somebody to replace him.
Oh my god.
So he's just like, oh, like you should come work with me, da da da. And I've always wanted to just get my hands dirty. And I was honestly able to start at the youngest age legally
Right.
to work. So I jumped right into it. And then all the kitchen managers or the chefs, if you want to call them that, they're like, oh, you did your brother a solid. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? They're like, the only reason he's cooking food now is because you came in to take his spot. And of course, I learned very quick how unglamorous washing hundreds of dishes are on a consistent basis. And doing that 3 nights a week while you're in about, I think I was grade 9 at the time starting off, it's a very different lifestyle than a lot of my peers were
Mhm.
going through at the time. So I was playing competitive sports, working 3 nights a week, and then going to high school 5 days a week as well. So it's a pretty full on kind of schedule and stuff. But just going through those kind of emotions, right? Seeing, again, I was 14. My brother was maybe, I think, 3 years older than I. Most of the other people were 20, 25
Mhm.
years plus. So seeing what those kind of people do for fun, seeing what that entails, if that's parties, if that's alcohol or some of the party favors that come into that
Mhm.
kind of world and stuff, it's you're hearing friends talk at school about video games and chilling at home and maybe playing sports on the time off, and I'm going to like ragers on the weekend at 1
Right.
a.m. after I finish a shift, right? So again, open my eyes to a fun world, but knowing how far or how deep those kind of holes or those worlds can go is another eye-opening experience, right? Because I've met a lot of people after the fact that have never left those realms, right? Because you get sucked in,
Yep.
I find, kind of easily. If you don't have the right kind of support systems in place. So as I was able to progress in different areas, again, learning from different people, and I found I got into maybe more higher end establishments. You had people that might have taken their profession a bit more seriously. So it's nice to see a bit more of that professionalism come into that line
Mhm.
of work. But going into more of like French fine dining, it was a big one learning curve because I didn't grow up with eating out a lot and definitely not at that kind of 5 star or a Michelin level kind of
Right.
experience, right? So it was a learning curve of how to just work or operate in a room like that with flavors like that and whatnot. So for me, it was very invigorating. But then at the same time, it was interesting because it was a nice hotel, but they also said like, again, I was young, but at the time I had tattoos, and this was way back when where I think not many front of house or people in general didn't have tattoos. No one was able to work front of house if they had tattoos or visible tattoos, and I have them like more
Right.
or less a whole sleeve. So I'm like, okay, I guess I can't work front of house. And then again, based on my roots or maybe just being a man in general, I grow a pretty full beard and you have to keep it very like trimmed and
Mhm.
proper and whatnot, especially when you're in the front of house. So I knew that, okay, maybe I'm more geared towards the back of house and I got to keep it pretty dialed in as well. So it's all these little things. And then you see more of maybe the bigger elephants in the room when it comes around racism and whatnot. I was born and raised in Canada's nation's capital of Ottawa, not as multicultural, if you will, as Toronto or maybe
Mhm.
Vancouver, if you will, in our country. So there's definitely those kind of setbacks, hurdles to get over, especially as you get into more your fine dining realms. In these smaller cities, I was maybe the one of only person who wasn't Caucasian. So dealing with those kind of pressures, comments, there's so many things you can say to describe it, right? Sometimes they're direct, sometimes they're not. So if it's derogatory comments made directly at you, slurs being put out your way, that started off when I was 14 all the way up to most recent kind of placements. And then sometimes people ask me if I even understand these flavors or if I have or if I can speak English. Like it's just like sometimes it's just like ignorant kind of comments
Yep.
and they can sometimes be passed off as a joke, and I'm here for a good time as well, but there has to be some kind of level of compassion there, right? So I think those have been massive kind of hurdles, especially when you get into, I guess, more fine dining just around the world in general, right? And there's been books, massive people around the world who have written or spoken about these kind of setbacks or hurdles we've had to overcome. And that's why we've had to go out into maybe more unique avenues for us to find a place for ourselves, for our voice, and for us to put out our true authentic selves. Because I've been in places where we're designing menus or running events and they're like, you know what, these flavors might not resonate with the crowd, or we can't put that cut of protein, or maybe we can't even put that protein on the menu because we don't think people are going to like it. And I'm like, I come from a part of the world where there's a billion plus people that eat these flavors on the regular, that eat these proteins or these cuts. So I'm like, you telling me that people might not like it? I don't know. It was hard to hear, and I just got to a certain point recently in my career where I was tired of hearing those kind of things, right? So I wanted to take that control back.
I often say the things I put up with as a teenager from the adults room, I would never tolerate today. And I would have like a lot of choice words to say back to those people,
Oh yeah.
especially knowing how much it actually affected me as I got older. In the moment, you want to be a part of the joke and not be
Yeah.
the butt of the joke, right? So you just kind of like take it on the chin, you accept it for what it is, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't affect you or doesn't hurt or it's not offensive. It's that you don't want to have to make any more of a scene because we were told not to make a scene.
Well, and that's it, right? It's like that was the norm. And it's
Mhm.
not like I'm a super old head by any means, but I did grow up through this massive kind of transitional part within the hospitality industry, right? So
Right.
I've grown up with the old school mentality, and I'm now part of that new school where some of the old heads have now left or gone on to bigger, brighter things. But I've been able to see this massive transition and us coming to that reckoning, if you will, knowing that like,
Mhm.
oh, that has taken a toll in some kind of way. And I look at certain things on how things have played out, and I'm like, that would be a lawsuit if that
Yep.
happened in a restaurant organization these days. And I just
Mhm.
took it on the chin. I'm like, oh, I just want to keep this job, or I worked super hard to get this placement, or you want to be part of like that crew and whatnot. And some things you just take on. And I'm just like looking back at it now, I'm like, that one, it's crazy. These people had the audacity to
I know.
make certain comments and whatnot. And I'm just like, I can't believe I let that just fly, right? Where now somebody might catch hands if they say those same things.
And I was gonna say, I mean, you talk openly about how chefs specifically, you're training a marathon almost every day when you work on the floor. And most people in the kitchen can handle themselves. So like to think that there weren't more physical altercations off of things that people had said, clearly these people can handle themselves.
Mhm.
Like these are tough people. It is interesting. And I think that's hard. People that don't work around industry. Like, what do you mean that happened or that happens? Like it's just a part of built-in culture that many of us are over and we're trying to stop that. It will never make sense to me that this was so tolerated for so long. And in some places it still is.
Well, and that's the thing, right? And I'm sure we both can attest to that, where when we look at the job market or like certain potential out there for our careers, the options are limited in certain ways. Maybe less so now than it was maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. But I think that's something that you and I, as individuals, are always going to have to face. Hopefully, not for much longer, but crossing our fingers for that. But
Oh my
again,
hand.
it's a lot of people I've talked to. They're just like, oh, that's never crossed our mind.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, you never want to actually see who's the managers or who are your sous chefs that you're working with and whatnot, and who's actually represented in the management here. If I don't see anyone that sounds or looks like me or comes from my part of the world, I'm like, how do I think there's going to be any growth or kind of recognition for what I bring to the table, right?
Mhm.
Then I'm just another cog in their machine. What are we really doing here? And at a certain point in your career, yes, you have to put your head down and work and go through the ropes, if you will. But there's a certain point where that transition happens, and you have to be even more intentional on where you offer up your value.
When you entered the culinary media, landscape, so to speak, did you feel like that was a great opportunity for you to showcase, like you said, like you're part of the world and where you come from and break up maybe some of the staticness of what food media used to look like? And now it's
Literally.
kind of what people are like fighting for, which we've already had a conversation about that. I don't think that's what our industry was meant for, is to fight through, to break through to media
Hmm.
in competition necessarily. Because I think that's caused its own issues. But do you think that helped you amplify your voice and maybe help you even realize I have a bigger purpose outside of being in the kitchen?
Yeah, for sure. Like I think my first opportunity to come into that world, I guess more in a grander way, was with the Food Network when I was 20 years old and when I did Chopped. So
So young,
even
man.
years before Top Chef, right?
Wow.
And again, like we've always had a multicultural landscape here in Canada, but it's still an uphill battle when you look for true and equal kind of representation or opportunities. So that definitely opened that door to one, sure, maybe some kind of more possibilities to do work with the Food Network or other like media companies, but more of the door in my mind of what is actual possible to do out there, right? I didn't grow up watching many chefs on TV. I guess for my era growing up, you had Jamie Oliver, Gordon Ramsay, and that
Mm,
was more or less it. Marco Pure White wasn't much of a TV chef as the other two were, but
mhm.
these were some of the like prominent figures, right? And now you're
Right.
looking around the world. You look at some of the biggest chefs on TV in Australia or in the UK and whatnot. It's so diverse, and I do feel North America is coming up. I still feel there's a long way to go, but it's nice to know that there is potential in that space. And if that's me or whoever, I'm just happy that I have confidence in myself taking on those spots, or at least helping people come into those pathways themselves.
That's awesome. We talked a little bit about while you're on the show and the grueling aspect that people also don't see, like behind the scenes of perfection and lack of connection, which is so interesting. I've had a couple chefs that have been on similar shows, and you kind of, there's this sense of feeling like you forgot why you're there when you lose connection to the people on the outside that have been there for you the whole time. I know you've done a lot of inward work, and because your outward presence, I think you do wonderful expressing that of, I want to make sure the industry has that connection, the human side of it, and maybe it's not about chasing something that's not as important as we thought it was.
Yeah, that's it. It's always easier to look back at things than when you're
Mhm.
going into it. So having that hindsight is always 2020. But a lot of people have reached out if they're Canadian based, American, for coming into these competition like shows. And the main thing I explain to them, it's just having the right mentality going into it, right? I again, not really regrets, but I was definitely on the younger end of things. Probably
Mhm.
one of the youngest people to be on Chopped, one of the younger people to ever be on Top Chef Canada as well. So again, just going in with the wrong kind of not priorities, but just the mentality, right? Knowing that the best chef isn't always the one who wins. There's other metrics that are measured on the show. There's political things that are at play, sponsors that pay for certain things to play out. And at the end of the day, if it's dramatized or not, there is TV ratings that matter above all.
Mhm.
So knowing that, you know what, let's just come into it with a kind of more of a holistic mindset. Let's make new friends. Let's enjoy the process. Let's get to meet some of the people behind the scenes, not just the other competitors. And I've been able to make great friends from the process. So I'm happy I've been able to just to do that like already when I was going through the motions. But again, just that mental toll of going through the competitions that, or the kind of challenges, if you will, throughout these seasons and whatnot, or the episodes. It's not as realistic to our everyday life by any means,
Right.
and not to take the criticism, if it's warranted or not, to heart, right?
Mhm.
Because yeah, sometimes they're bringing on world class chefs, and you definitely take their criticism to heart because they've put in the same hours and worked the line. But then you bring in people who've never worked a day in a kitchen and they're critiquing you, and you're just like, why am I listening to this person? And this is going to get shown on national television. it
Right.
it does something special to the psyche.
I heard a chef here that was on the Top Chef here in the US, and she said, looking back, I wish I'd never listened to some of that criticism because I'm just as successful now than I was before the show. And she's like, I don't even really necessarily know the show did anything for me except that I wanted to prove them wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's like, I just felt like I was berated all the time. Like I never did it right. I couldn't live up to what the challenge was. I never got in a groove of it. And she's like, that's my advice to people that join the show is like, that does not define you
Mm-hmm.
as who you are and the ability of your success and the level of success that you can get with or without the show. Cause it's all about your talent whether it's God given or you worked really hard to get it. I love that she said that. She was like, I wish I had never listened because it really brought her down. And then after she
Same.
left, she's like, I'm not going to let this be what said, let them just define who I am as a
Yeah.
person and as a professional in this industry. Because he said the hours we put in the industry, you can't get back. And it's like, did I waste time doing that to have like 3 minutes of critique or something that I made that I would never typically made to begin with?
Well, and that's the crazy part, right? It's like some of our challenges. I know the shows are definitely a little different, but like some of the challenges we're given 20 minutes and we're critiqued like this is the best dish we've ever made. And I'm like,
Mhm.
again, chefs working in different realms. I'm like, a lot of my dishes or my menus, like the items, I'm like, they take days, weeks, sometimes months or years.
Right.
And then like you're giving me a random pantry to create
Hmm.
something that represents me authentically. And then they're like, oh, we want you to be more authentic or showcase who you really are in this dish. And I'm like, interesting based on the parameters you're giving us. And then at the same time, you don't have anyone that understands maybe some of the flavors I would use critiquing this dish. So they're like, oh, this is too bold or this temperature is off or something like that. And I'm like, this is how it's authentically had. But
Hmm.
if you've never been to that country or if you've never grown up with it, why should I be listening to you to critique? And there's that exact switch based on what your friend was saying. I'm like, that exact switch happened to me in the semis when I went out. And I'm like, you know what? And that's why I was so happy leaving. I'm like, you know what? I know that this dish is amazing because I've served it to with millions of people over the years of putting it on at restaurants and events. And like, I've been judged by someone who has no idea what these flavors are actually like or the level of
Hmm.
expertise it takes to build said flavors. At least I'm going out representing myself in an authentic way, so I can be happy with that.
And I think that's what's so important is so many of us in the industry, like, I do not work in the back of house and everyone, I joke about that. Like I'm good in the front, but I take a lot of pride in service and giving service. And I will say the only episode on Top Chef that's ever bothered me is when they do the restaurant wars. Because I'm like, you people give us so much, you know what, about not being able to share or say your menu correctly, but you don't know how to greet a table. And that's what brings these people down. I'm like, it really is an eye opening thing of, I hope that they took from that experience, like, man, your front of house team really does
Mhm.
work super hard. We may not always get it right. We may screw up orders. And like, there's this weird divide that I will never understand, but it really is a skilled job and it's hard. And that's like for me, part of the industry where I think I thrive is I just get people and I understand them and I have no
Literally.
problem talking. And I think also being a chef on like a food media base is a lot of chefs are in the back. They don't do the conversating.
Mhm.
And that can be hard in general, being around people that you would typically not be around. And how do you feel yourself if that's not like your normal thing?
And yeah, it's so true, right? And it's intriguing to see who ends up being the chef of the front of house, if you will. And you can see who is shying away from that if they're getting picked or not to do it.
Mhm.
But again, that's what I love. Maybe based on the realms I've worked in, especially when you go into some of the Michelin like restaurants and whatnot, they make their chefs take dishes out to the tables and explain them. Because one, who can
Mhm.
explain the dish better? The chef who just spent 12 hours prepping it, right? But then at the same time, they bring in a lot of their somms or their servers in front of house team to spend days in the kitchen. So they understand the work and the effort that goes into it,
That's
right?
huge.
So it's that cross training, I think, is absolutely huge and vital. And it'd
Mhm.
be great to see that one obviously in the Michelin restaurants, but coming all the way down to the base level, right? And I feel they're
Mhm.
implementing that a lot more now in culinary schools and whatnot. So people, one, have that experience, but two, I think more important is the respect.
It's huge about for me, it's respect. Is I definitely was not taught or did not have that experience when I was younger in the industry. Like what respect was on both sides. It was there was this line drawn in the sand and you didn't cross it. And if you crossed into the kitchen, you got screamed at or something thrown at you or called names or whatever it is. And
Mhm.
then you say it back. And then usually someone's, losing a shift by the end of it. It's so unfortunate because I would have loved to have gotten more exposure. Like I always, if anyone said, hey, someone in the dish room, I'm always the first to say yes. And I talk about this a lot. Like I think the dishwasher is the most undervalued, but most important person in the entire establishment. Because if they can't do their job successfully, no one's going to do their job successfully.
That's it. Yeah.
And so I've always felt like wherever I've worked and I've managed, people need to know how to run the dish room because if
Good.
that goes down, we all go down with it.
Yeah, and that's the backbone, right?
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's funny because a lot of more recent restaurants I've worked at, if the dishwasher doesn't show up or whatnot, it's the head chef or the owner in there. And it's funny, again, it's the last thing that they technically want to be doing, but 9 times out of 10, I talk to them, they're just like, we're chilling.
Hmm.
It's not a very mentally stimulating kind of role, but they're just like, you know what? If this is what I have to do to make sure that the team is okay, I'll put a couple of loads throughout the service. I'm like, so it is nice, and it's great to see some people leading by example like that.
And leading by example, I think, is also huge. Now, there is this understanding that if you are a leader, it means that you do too. You
Yeah.
don't just say it.
Yeah, I think I've learned a lot both inside and outside of the kitchen, what not to do more
Hmm.
than how to do things, right? And when you're talking about earlier about hurdles or setbacks, I remember I was 18 years old working at this like really nice restaurant in town, and pretty common for kitchen folk, if you will, to get after service beers.
Hmm.
And it's funny, we sometimes get them in a jug, sometimes just like a deep six hotel container. It's a little bit more kitchen rustic, if you will. But I was ostracized or made light of for one, not partaking on a consistent basis
Mm.
of after service beers, but because I would have a protein shake and hit the gym instead of having one or two beers at work and then hitting the pub across the street. And I'm like, maybe once a week or maybe once every few weeks, I'll do that. But 9 times out of 10, I'm like, I want to actually feel fresh for service the next day, actually show up on time and not
Hmm.
feel a little out of it, right? So I've had
Right.
chefs, sous chefs and whatnot show up for late. I'm waiting at the back door and stuff for a Friday day prep shift because they probably went out partying on the Thursday night, right? But then I'm made fun of in these places because I'm taking my health seriously. I find it kind of ridiculous, to be honest.
I was just talking to a group the other day about after drink shifts, and I was never taught about alcohol really. I was never given an understanding of alcohol. It was just given to me as a reward for working. And now that I'm, you know, close to 40, I'm like, man, in my like 20 years ago, I could have used like education about alcohol because I was just overindulging.
Hmm.
I didn't understand what the sugars were doing to me, not just like gaining weight, but depleting me of all my energy and dehydration. And that my anxiety, a lot of it was probably fueled from the alcohol that I consumed the night before. And if I had been given that little bit of like, hey, you guys get shift drinks, that's fine. But also there was like an alcohol education that went along with like the drinks that
Hmm.
they were serving us. So we could understand what we were selling also. I would have benefited from that.
That's it. Yeah, it's just it's education, right? And the last thing
Mhm.
you want, or it's great if you want to offer this as a business owner, but things can get abused, right?
Mhm.
And that's the last thing we want to see because we know where some of that can lead to.
Yeah. And also I remember like I used to work at a place that they wouldn't give you a shift meal, but they gave you a shift drink. Isn't that crazy?
That's ridiculous. Like I can understand from like a cost perspective
It
for
was
the
a cost thing.
business, but like
Exactly.
that's ridiculous.
Right? Like I was like, okay, so I can't eat anything while I'm working or
Yeah.
it's gonna cost me $10, but I can have an $8 whatever drink afterwards. But now I'm not eating during my shift because I can't afford to eat, and I'm also not allowed to order anything because we're during service. Uh,
And it's like I was explaining this to someone the other day because we were driving by the local hospital and that famous conversation like why are there doctors or nurses out front smoking cigarettes?
Mhm.
And it's funny because like I've worked in so many restaurants and I would say 9 times out of 10, the staff meal for the chefs is always dog shit.
Mhm.
I'm just like, why are we not fueling our body with real food so I can go work an 8 hour or like a 5, 6 hour service and actually perform at the level I need to? Let's just throw something in a deep fryer or hit something that's super greasy and carb loaded,
Mhm.
and then I just want to go to sleep in the next hour and we're starting service. There has to be more awareness, I think, around that, and but just more of that kind of priority put on, right? On what actually helps us function, not depletes us, right? There's great times for rewards, like getting a drink and stuff here and there, but it's
Mhm.
not sustainable.
Well, I mean, so talking about that, you have been heavily involved, and I would say your philanthropy work of advocating for healthier work environments. What kind of like led you into that, and what has been the most rewarding for you as you've done a lot of talks and keynote speakers, but also you're an advocate at the Burnt Chef. But
I think the most rewarding one, like you hit the nail on the head earlier, is about leading by example. So
Mhm.
anything I ever quote unquote preach about, I live. If that's the way I eat, the amount or the lack of that I drink, or how I partake in said substances or alcohol, and how I treat or train my body, that is how I live. So I put that out there, if that's directly to my friends or my close circle or through socials, however way that shows up, but it's that ripple effect. So when people come back to me and they're just like, Chef, I stopped smoking and I started working out and I've never felt better. Or
Right.
Chef, you know what? I got a therapist because I've been going through this. This is absolutely amazing. This has changed my life. Or if, hey, I've trained like how I've actually spent my money or how I've thought about getting to work or all these
Mhm.
little things that have made me save my money because we're in a tighter kind of situation right now. This has made my life 10 times better. So it's just those little things. I think it's great because I've been able to do those things for myself. But I think the more and more we see chefs, leaders doing the right things, we're going to follow suit. I grew up in the era of watching Rockstar Chefs. So I thought it was cool to throw parties and have fun and live that kind of lifestyle, right? But we all know that can't last forever. Seeing more people lead the right lives and then seeing how that affects other people and it can only affect them in a positive way, for me, is definitely the most fulfilling part.
I love that. I think it's so cool that you are exactly like, practice what you preach.
I feel that's the only way to lead.
Hmm. What led you to the burnt chef?
So I found the Burnt Chef very early on in COVID. So still, I guess, in the infancy of Burnt Chef in general. But this was like early 2020, probably when a lot of us in the hospitality world probably hit a dark hole or
Hmm.
rock bottom. I was living in the south of the UK, came back to Canada, and in Toronto, we were, I think, more or less fully shut down for about 2 years straight. So being out of work for that amount of time is not easy on the bank account or the psyche, especially because just personally, I just filmed Top Chef before. I had a bunch of job placements all across Europe at top placement or top kind of establishments. So much momentum built up. So it felt like you're on the top of the cliff going on to the next peak and you just fell off the other side. So in this time of darkness, I stumbled across the podcast and Chris was interviewing the founder, interviewing some of the biggest chefs in London and the UK, chefs I've grown up idolizing, if you will, or following them, some I've worked with, and hearing their stories and whatnot of them as individuals, but also how they're really trying to change their workplaces for the better. And I'm like, if these chefs running one, two, three Michelin star kitchens can one talk about said subjects and
Hmm.
then actually do something about it, I'm like, why can't we be doing that here? And then I'm like, oh, let's find out who this Chris guy is. Started digging a bit deeper, and I'm like, you know what? I want to really like align myself with said mission, if that's with the Burn Chef or not. But let me just learn more about it. And I was able to talk with Chris and learn more about the kind of movement in general. And yeah, I was hooked from the get go.
I found out about it through Jim
Okay.
Taylor
Yep.
and Shell Rahigny, who's in the UK, and that was in 2023, and I had never ever heard of it. And then Jim and I met a couple times virtually, and I was like, "Well, let me look into it." And I did, and it's changed my life. And getting to meet people like you and Jamie and just everyone across the world, it's like a very nice unifying message that we say everything's so divisive and everything's us versus them, and then we have this group of people that all are very like-minded, that are all very different and very diverse, has been so rewarding for me.
Yeah, I can't, yeah, I can't disagree. It's been so rewarding to be part of a healthy community
Mhm.
in this industry. There's nothing negative about it. It's not like we're not here to shame people by any means. It's more of like a refuge, if you will. We're here to take people in, support people. And I think in a place that's just radiating positivity, it's so nice to be a part of that with you and with all the other ambassadors and to see more of these communities, if it's mental health based or not, just more healthy communities come to market within our line
Mhm.
of work just makes it so nice to see that we're moving in a positive direction, and it's nice to build communities apart from the community we would go out to drink and party with.
Right. Because 'cause we're all trauma bonded no matter where where you are. We've all lived. I mean, there's gonna be a generation that I hope that hasn't lived it, the way that we did. Like, that's my hope for my daughter, and that's why I do what I'm doing. But all of us right now are trauma bonded from, our infancy starting, like, in our teens. And then a lot of us lived through the COVID pandemic and how traumatic that was on multiple levels. Like you said, your bank account. We are social beings. Everyone in the hospitality industry does it because they love being around people. And to have that completely removed from you was catastrophic for so many people. You lose your purpose. Like, what am I supposed to do? How do I make money? And then re-entering the workforce was also really hard and is hard for a lot of people. They were alone. And a lot of us, I know I wasn't in a relationship for a long time in the industry. I was single, and I think a lot of people are single, or their relationship are people that they work with.
Mm-hmm.
And so to take that away was really, really hard. So what we're doing at Burnt Chef, or all these other organizations that have, like you said, are coming to the market, they recognize that there was a bigger problem than anyone was willing to talk about.
Yeah. And
And
it's,
that
it's
just exploded it.
and it's nice to see that there's more than one way to skin a cat, like they say.
Mhm.
There's so many ways to tackle the various different kind of problems. And it's great to see that there's so many different ways and people coming together to combat this, because we are in this industry because we love it. The people
Yep.
are great that's in it. It's great catering for said guests as well. And I think about it every day. There's not another industry I think I could really be that deeply involved with. There's a reason I keep being drawn back, right? So it's nice to see more things being brought to market to really help more positive growth for this industry to thrive down the line.
Well, what you're also doing is that you are amplifying, like I said earlier, your very diverse background and creating, well, beautiful food. Like, I know it sounds so silly, but it really is pretty food. It looks gorgeous.
Appreciate you.
The colors, and you feel like you're a part of it in all of your videos that you put out. Like, you're very intentional with everything that you do. What made you really want to start, blasting it out? Like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm proud of, and I want to share this.
One, because I think it was just maybe a notion I've heard from many people, from chefs, from colleagues, all the way up to Top Chef. Show us your authentic self. Right. And I think that's such an easy line to throw out. Right. And I have so many close friends that are 10 generations French, or they're Italian 100 generations back. Like, there's such a strong bloodline. So it's so easy for them to like find that kind of lineage based on the food that they put out. And there's a bajillion restaurants around the world, from small mom and pops to Michelin star restaurants, that offer up that kind of excellence in those cuisines. But for me, because it's such a diverse background, I'm like, you know what, I want to find a way to show my authentic self, but in a way that's authentic to me. Maybe not authentic or traditional in the sense of where maybe these flavors or ingredients have come from, but it's authentic to who I am in the world and what Canada has really evolved into, and representing that. I think me being the firstborn Canadian in my family with the kind of background that I do offers up a cool take or unique perspective on those ingredients and showcasing them in a unique way. But I'm representing that kind of that third culture, that new wave, right? Because if you look at massive parts of the States, UK, or even parts of Europe, but mostly the world, migration has been there for years, right? And Canada being such a young country, so much of our culinary identity has definitely been built and deserves to be recognized on the indigenous roots of this country. But seeing the influence of the French and the British coming to Canada, that's been there for years. This massive wave of immigrants coming in the 80s, 90s, we have some of the most authentic flavors from China, Japan, Indonesia, India, Mexico, in Toronto and Canada. But now it's my generation that's growing up, where we're not growing up with just these authentic flavors. I know I can go out for all those meals authentically, produced in the best way, in the like highest quality, for almost every single meal every day, no matter what day of the week it is. And I think I'm very lucky, but that is the world that me and my generation have grown up with. So that's the inspiration I take into my food. So one, showcasing maybe the colors of the world I'm coming from, especially when you think of South Asia and the colors we think of India, but then the flavors of that, but then the techniques of French gastronomy, or the minimalism of Nordic cuisine, or the robust kind of cooking styles from Mexico. these are things that I've grown up with. That is how I've eaten in my life. That's how I've in my household and in the streets, if you will. And that's how I've really taken in that inspiration into my cuisine. So I feel that's a true representation, not one just of Canada, but who I am as an individual. For me to cook authentically, this is what it is. It's not sticking to maybe traditional realms of what people think maybe Indian food can be, but this is how it has shown up in my life, and this is how I'm going to be portraying it to the world.
Beautifully said. I think it's so important for people to hear that what's authentic to you isn't something to be shameful of. And there is this fear to be, or shame to be authentically yourself because it might be slightly different. Everyone has that thought in their head. Like, I don't want to be exactly who I am because it might not fit the mold or it might deter people away. But when you really do just kind of like shake that off and say, this is who I am, this is what I want to put out to the world because it matters to me. If it matters to me, it probably matters to somebody else. Then you start really seeing beautiful work come out.
Well, and that's it. It's one paving a way for myself because it's not something that's technically been done. It'd be great to see restaurants that lean into this maybe a bit more, especially out of the main scope of what Western European cuisines have dominated the world for so long, right? Especially in the higher levels of gastronomy. So it'd be great to see more of this paving the way for other people and knowing that, sure, I could find maybe more success, more monetary gain if I just did multi-course tasting menus focused on French cuisine or Spanish or Italian. But I'm like, I'm not going to have that fulfillment. Sure, am I going to be able to get a bigger bank account? Okay. But I'm like, I'm not going to enjoy that day in, day out. I rather cut my clientele in half, but actually give my true self out. And then all the clients that I get to cook with, if they're private or corporate, they get it. And that's going to snowball into something 10 times bigger because with the economists that I network or work with, this is the trends of the future. And we're going to start seeing that in these global hubs throughout the US and Canada and worldwide. Yeah, I'm just excited to see what that future holds.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. Well, if there was one magic wand, what would be next for you for a career? What would you make happen? Or what do you want to make happen for yourself?
It's hard to pick one thing, Colleen,
All right, then
because
pick two things.
there's as you know and you've mentioned, I work in so many different, I guess, arms of the hospitality or just the food world in general. But I think it's just finding, I guess, more of that kind of direction for myself. Yes, it would be great to open up a restaurant and to offer up what I do to quote unquote the masses, but I feel there's more that can be done before that time happens in my life. I said recently on another podcast, this is probably why I've taken a step back from more traditional realms, is because I want to really focus on the whole picture, right? If I open a restaurant tomorrow, sure, my name's on the door, whatever, people are coming in to try my food, but are the systems in place to support the people that work there? Are there even people that are going to be able to work there? So I think right now for me is hopefully there's more realms for me to help fix the kind of problems that we have. So if and when I do open a restaurant, it's a sustainable business model, not just a sustainable menu. And every single person from dishwasher to CEO, everybody is thriving and everyone can have a good life. So I think if I can create some kind of realm, job, whatever it is right now, to make that a reality, that is my biggest wand swipe, if you will.
It's said that if you say something out loud, you manifest it, it's more likely to come true.
I'll be crossing my fingers here, Colleen.
Yeah.
So time will tell.
Well, if anyone were want to get in contact with you, where should they go and how can they reach out to you?
So you can obviously find me on socials, but just by Googling my name and whatnot, you'll find my site and any kind of contact details from there. So I've worked pretty meticulously and long to make it pretty easy to make myself accessible. So if you do feel the pull to reach out, please do not hesitate.
Well, Imrun, it has been my pleasure to have you on here. I was very excited that you said yes. He is someone that I have just really enjoyed getting to know. So thank you for joining me. Thank you all for listening. Please sure to follow me on all things Hospitality Bites through hospitalitybites.com or connect with me on social media. Please follow my friends at the Walk and Talk Show for their incredible content, including today's podcast episode. And as I tell everyone, please be kind to yourself and be kind to one another. Thank you, Imrun.
Thank you, Colleen. Thank you.